Welcome to today's calculator tip lesson. Today we will use the Polynomial Root Finder app on our calculator to check, and I want to stress that we are checking these only, the solutions to quadratic equations. We have already learned or will learn 4 methods to solving a quadratic: graphing, factoring, completing the square, and quadratic formula. You should be proficient in all 4 of these methods, but we could check our answers with our TI calculator app. Obviously, you will need a TI calculator with this Poly Root Finder app, and I'm going to go through the steps for how to do that. So get your calculators out and turn them on. Here's mine. I'm going to try to keep it over here so we can see our text. What we're going to do is we're going to push the apps button. The apps button is right here. So push the apps. I have 4 applications on my calculator. I'm interested in number 4. The Poly Simul, it's got a 2 on there as well. So I'm going to push 4 to access that app. And here it is. It says press any key, so I'll push enter. And there are a bunch of things that we can use in this app. Number 1 is what we're learning in this tutorial, Polynomial Root Finder. So I'm going to select that by pushing enter or by pushing 1. The default on this calculator is that it is degree 2. The calculator calls it an order, but it's really called a degree by most mathematicians. Now, we could solve cubics and quartics and quintics and other types of equations with higher degrees, but right now we're talking about quadratic, so we've got the 2 highlighted. We're not interested in only real answers, so I am going to use my arrow and I'm going to go down to A plus BI. That is our complex mode. Make sure that that is highlighted. So I'll push enter on that. Everything else can stay the same. We'll take our answers as fractions, and well, everything else is the same. We see this button that says next. We have help and we have main. I want to push next, and we push the graph button to hit the next, and then it's waiting for our coefficients for our quadratic. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set it up like that and then type the coefficients from standard form. Watch our signs carefully, and then we will use our app to solve it. So I've got 4 quadratic equations, and I have the answers that you've already found, either using completing the square or quadratic formula or possibly even factoring. Today's tutorial is to show you how you can check that you are correct. Obviously, I need to see all of the work according to the direction that I've told you, but you can use your calculator to check. So let's check this first one. The first thing I want to make sure is we've got it equal to 0. Good for that. Let's go to our calculator. I'll bring it over here a little bit. I'm already in my apps, or in my app, and I'm waiting for my coefficients. My coefficients in this case are 5, -13, and 6. So I'm just going to type 5, and then an arrow down, -13, and then an arrow down, and then 6. So those are the coefficients, and I'm going to select solve. That's the 5th button right here, and boop, we've got it. The answers are 2 and 3/5, and here they are, 2 and 3/5. We just checked it. That's it. It's that fast on our calculator. Let's try another one. So I've got 1x squared plus 34 equals, oh, something's wrong with this. Oh, it's not equal to 0. I need to subtract my 6x, and I'm going to put that right here in the middle so it's in standard form, x squared, then -6x, then positive 34. I need that equals to 0 so that it's in standard form. Now I know my value of A, my value of B, and my value of C. The calculator doesn't necessarily call them A, B, and C. It calls them A sub 2, A sub 1, and A sub 0, but they're in the same locations there. So we need to go back and change our coefficients. Since I'm already in the app, I'm going to select this middle button up top. That changes our coefficients. And I'm just going to clear all those out and replace them with what I'm supposed to have. A is supposed to be a 1, so the first one will be 1. And then we have a -6, so I'll type -6. And then we have a positive 34. And there we are. Now we click the solve button. We should have 3 plus 5i and 3 minus 5i. And there they are. I'd like to write them as 3 plus or minus 5i. The calculator shows them as 2 separate numbers, which they are. But there we go. We can use our calculator to check that one. Let's try this. Here's our, these are kind of ugly looking answers, but we found them using quadratic formula probably. Now let's check. I have my 0, so I just need my A, my B, and my C. Let's plug them into our calculator. Again, I'm just going to go to coefficients to change my coefficients. And A, the first one is going to be a 9. The second one's going to be a negative 12. The third one's going to be a positive 5. I'm going to push solve. And so our calculator says this. It says 2/3 plus 1/3 I, and then 2/3 minus 1/3 I. So let's write that down here. We've got, it says 2/3 plus 1/3, I'll just do plus or minus, 1/3 I. Do you see how that is the same as how you would have found it using your quadratic formula? If they have the same denominator, then you can combine them both together with that same denominator, and you have the 2 and then the plus or minus. You don't need one I, you can just write it as I. So it is the same, but you need to understand that sometimes the calculator won't look exactly how you would have found it. You need to be able to interpret what the calculator looks like to be sure that you have your correct answer. And the order of operations still matters. It says 1 divided by 3 and then times I. This is not 1 divided by 3I. This is 1/3 times I. Very different than 1 divided by 3I. Okay. So I showed you that one just to make sure that you understand the calculator is not going to give you exactly what you might have had on your paper from your method. And let's check our last one. It's already in standard form. There it is. Here's our 1. Here's our A, here's our B, here's our C. Let's plug in and see what our calculator says. I'm going to change my coefficients, and I'll do 1, enter, 6, enter, and 4, enter. So there they are, 1, 6, 4. I used enter instead of the down button, and now I'm going to solve and gross. Unfortunately, this calculator app will not give irrational answers. So yes, we can sort of use our calculator to check our answers, but it will never show you them as -3 plus or minus the square root of 5. What you need to do is understand that this is -3 plus the square root of 5 and -3 minus the square root of 5. Plug that into your calculator and you would get these decimal approximations. So it's about -5.23, blah, 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 blah. This is irrational, and -0.76, blah, 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 blah. This is irrational. What I would need to have done, and I'm just going to push second quit. I could push 6 or just second quit again. Let's type and see -3 plus the square root of 5, which is right there, and plug that in, press enter, and there's one of our two ugly decimals that the app showed us. And then the other one would be -3 minus the square root of 5. And I assume that this will be the other one. Yep, the -5 point da 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 da. So the calculator is not going to give you exactly these answers when they are irrational, but you can still use them to check, or you can still use it to check that you are correct by typing these in and seeing that you get the same decimals that the calculator has given you. So I hope you like this app. It should be a good checking tool to give you the fact that you have done your work correctly. But again, I need to see all of your steps in your process to get full credit. The answers will only get you a little credit at the end. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and we can practice that on the calculator in class. See ya.